Hello everyone. We're now in the video number 4 of the chapter 4 about defining and explaining leisure behavior. And we're in the third and last major topic in this chapter about theoretical explanations of leisure behavior. And before getting into specific theories, we wanted to explain what theory is. Theory in research and academic context is this. It's a set of interrelated testable propositions or hypotheses, if you will. It's a system of ideas that is intended to explain something. And here it's a leisure behavior. So why do we care about theories? Who cares? Well, we care, and especially not just researchers, but also practitioners. Because theory is like the links in a chain. Determining what leisure services to provide for people is often based on the leisure research findings, and those research findings are often testing leisure theories. So theory is the starting place for knowledgeable, reasonable, research-based, evidence-based action. And that's very important, not just for researchers, but also professionals. But also as a persons, just human beings, if you want to use the knowledge to improve your leisure life and make yourself happy and make people who are close to you happy, then you want to know theory, not just a hunch, but theories. Now, the little bit of a tricky part here is that leisure studies, our field, is a multidisciplinary field, where different perspectives, different theories are coming from different fields, basically, including psychology, sociology, anthropology, economics, geography, management, humanities, not so much natural sciences, but recently we see some of the biological and physiological research as well, which is exciting. There's so many. We're going to focus just a few major ones in this course, and if you're interested in that, hopefully you can explore that further in your future studies. So we begin with the psychology, and one of the first theory that chapter talked about here is Newlinger's leisure paradigm, and we already talked about that in, I think, chapter 2. So watch that video if you don't remember well. And in our course, by the way, this RLS 100, it's enough to know the 4-dimension model, by the way. Not the 6 dimensions one, right, with the circle, 6-dimension one that you saw in this chapter, okay? You don't have to worry about that. The 4-dimension one, which is basically the same thing. But the 4-dimension one is enough. The second theory, and it's a big one, the chapter talked about in terms of psychological theory about leisure is flow. We already talked about that at the beginning of the chapter. But now we dig in. According to chapter, it's a feeling of an energized focus, full involvement, and success in the process of an activity. To be more specific, there are 4 characteristics of flow. The characteristics means that if you see these things, markers and, characteristics of other people, right, we're going to talk about that, then you can say, oh, you're in flow now. Okay. That's what characteristics mean. And the first characteristic is loss of self-consciousness. The chapter says that the boundaries of our being pushed away forward without self-scrutiny. Poetic, but not that clear. But what's important is this self-scrutiny, being self-conscious. You don't do that when you are in flow. For example, I play badminton. Okay, once again, that's my badminton bag. And sometimes I play doubles, right? 2 pair together. And I pair up with someone really good. And I get really, really self-conscious sometimes. Oh, am I bothering the other person? I don't want to just get into their way, sort of thing. Am I doing okay? I just look at their partner's face and just like making sure that they're not pissed, right? They're not angry, sorry. That's not good for flow. That's not flow. Okay, you're not worried about that. You're not self-conscious like that when you're in flow. Okay, so that's not good, having that self-scrutiny. And if you think about that, that makes sense, right? When you're thinking that way, usually you're not doing well. The second characteristic is this merging of action and awareness, which is kind of related to the first one, but it's different. Here, your attention is fully absorbed by the activity, so that doing the activity is automatic. That's the key, automatic. A simple example is driving. I don't know if you drive, but probably many of you drive. So first time around when you just learn driving, you're like, it's not an automatic process at all, right? You sit, you check the mirrors, you put the seat belt on, and you like put your, foot on a not gas pedal, brake pedal, and engine start and check sideways and put the gear on and slowly start. It's very step by step, and you think and do, right? But when you're in flow, those two things, thinking and doing, they get together, merged, so that you almost don't think. You think and do together, right? When you get used to driving, everything is so natural and automatic. And that's what we mean, okay? The third characteristic is a sense of self-control, that you're feeling to be in charge, absolute in charge of the activity. You almost feel like, oh, I can't fail. I'm gonna succeed. I'm gonna win this thing for sure, okay? And the fourth, and this is a famous one, it's altered sense of time. Time seems to pass faster or slower in your mind, in your feeling. For example, you're a musician, classic music. You're gonna play this Beethoven's piano concerto in next 25 minutes, right? It's a long piece, 25 minutes. But when you're in flow, that 25 minutes feels like just a couple minutes, maybe. Right? The time perception changed. Or maybe you're a baseball player, right? You're hitting, and the ball comes from the pitcher, and it somehow starts to feel like the ball is slowing down, so that you can just hit right there. And that's, again, altered perception of the time. When you're in this absolute focus and high performance time flow. Now, that was characteristic. Now here we talk about, there are also three conditions of and for flow. So these are the conditions that you have to meet for you to get into flow. So it comes before flow, okay? The first condition is the balance between perceived challenge and skill, or maybe you want to say performance level, okay? So they have to match, and I will show you visually in the next slide with the model visual, right? It has to match. It has to match at a certain level. It has to match beyond your average level. I'm going to show you that in the next slide. Second condition is having clear goals and immediate feedback. For example, you can play badminton, right? And you can have a goal. Okay, I want to win this much. Okay, but how? Are you working on certain skills? Are you trying to do certain type of play? And you got to be more clear and specific than that. And that's very important. Another thing is having immediate feedback. Okay, you won or you lost, that's one feedback. But if, for example, if you have a coach who can advise you as you go, that could be a good way so that you feel like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm kind of nicely progressing toward the goal, the objective that we have, sort of thing. So when you do that, that's good. And the third condition is being autotelic. And that chapter got it not entirely correct. It is, autotelic is about intrinsic motivation, but it's not just having intrinsic motivation. It's the tendency to find intrinsic motivation in pretty much anything. It's a personality trait. Think about your friends, maybe family. There are some people who just almost enjoy anything at all. Like even like a housework or schoolwork, they just like love doing it. Yeah, it's fun. Somehow they make a fun out of it, basically. Those people. If you're one of those, you tend to flow more. Now the model. This is a model, okay? So the two important thing is this vertical line, which is a challenge, perceived challenge from low to high. Okay, even the same activity, depending on the situation, challenge changes, right? You're playing badminton, your opponent today is pretty, strong, the challenge level is high. Horizontal line is about skill level, and we can call it as a performance as well. So how's your skill today in this particular situation? Do you feel that you're really good or not? Are you doing well or not? Low to high. And flow, this red one, right top, only occurs those perceived challenge and skill matches beyond this center part, which is your individual average challenge level you face, average skill level of yourself, and you have to meet up top. Okay. Now, among those, I think there's 8 different things here, including flow. 4 are important. Flow is important. The opposite of flow is called apathy. Apathy here, your challenge is meeting skill, but they're below your average. So that's no good. It's no flow. Okay. That's actually one of the worst kind of experience, according to the theory. And it could happen in leisure too. I wonder what kind of activities, right? Apathy tend to happen in what kind of leisure activity? Can you think about any? What about what if your challenge level exceeds your perceived skill level? You feel like, oh, there's too much, opponent is stronger, something is too difficult, and that's when you are in anxiety experience. Opposite to that is relaxation, where you feel like you have too much of skill for the challenge you're facing. It's almost like a little, boring, but it's a relaxation. It's not too bad. Right here, right top, right bottom, sorry. These 4 are very important here. And this person, Csikszentmihalyi, he's a psychologist and he's the founder of flow. He's the person who created it. And he says this: the happiest people spend much time in a state of flow, the state in which people are so involved in activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it even at the great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. Can you think about anything like that? For you, maybe, or someone you know. Here's a TED Talk video if you want to check it out. But I personally think that this person is not the greatest speaker. But you can see the clear relationship, at least as a theory, between happiness and the flow. Now, the research doesn't necessarily strongly support that, as far as I know. Daily flow, so flow moments, because the flow doesn't last like hours. Usually it's very small things, it's minutes, or a couple minutes, or something like that. So those daily flow experience predict happiness, yes, but it's a very small effect. It's not really strong. In terms of leisure, though, some researcher found that actually people tend to experience flow more in paid work, than in leisure. Interesting. But kind of makes sense, because one of the conditions of flow was clear goals and immediate feedback. You may get that actually more in work, right? Because there's a supervisor and they'll tell you whether you're doing good or not, probably. Right? Hopefully you're doing good. So there's immediate feedback. While other researchers found that actually people, perceived almost similar levels of flow between leisure and work. So how is that possible? That's inconsistent. Well, that maybe depend on what type of leisure activity we're talking about, because those same people, Manel and colleagues, 2003, found that people tend to experience flow more in games, like board games and video games, sports, and hobbies, than, for example, in TV watching. Okay. So it depends on certain kinds of leisure activity where we can get, for example, clear goals and immediate feedback potentially, as well as maybe more challenge, right? And another theory about from psychology is this: self as entertainment. Your chapter talk about it. It's unique because this theory is made by a leisure researcher called Roger Minell from University of Waterloo. He's retired already, but he's a famous researcher in our field. And it's a personality theory. Yeah, we don't get a lot of personality theory in our field, so it's very unique. It talks about how people tend to fill out their free time with enjoyable activities. So there are different tendencies. It's about personality. It's over time. There's some consistency. And Roger Minell identified 3 types of the ways to do this, filling out your free time. The first kind is called a self-mode, which is basically believing that you're in charge, you're in control, right? And you change your behaviors to make the situation time fun. You rely on yourself. The second type is mind mode, which is basically escaping into fantasy. So it's the difference between first and second is that first is more behavioral, right? Doing stuff, things. Second is more about mind, in your head. The third one is environment. You rely on other people. Maybe there are some fun people, fun friends, and places like, places you can get a fun stuff like maybe, I don't know, shopping mall to fill out your free time. Research tends to suggest that the self mode is especially effective when it comes to improving your well-being. It makes sense, right? Because you're independent in terms of you're relying on yourself. That applies to everywhere. Now, the other theory, psychological theory, chapter talked about was reversal theory, but we don't really see that in our field, leisure recreation. So let's learn something more important, actually more contemporary. It's called a basic psychological need theory. You may have heard a bigger theory to which this one belongs to. It's called a self-determination theory. Okay. According to this theory, there are 3 universal psychological needs to be met for you to have optimal, great well-being. So it's directly related to happiness and well-being. So that's why it's very relevant here to us. The first is autonomy, the need of autonomy. You have to feel in accordance to the value of a chosen activity, behavior. You have to feel you're self-chosen. You have to feel that you're self-endorsed. Basically, you've seen this actually, I know. Basically, you have to agree with the value of the behavior you're doing. For example, you go to gym, right? It's not like, oh, I don't want to do gym, gym is stupid. That's not good for autonomy. If you think that, okay, I think that gym is very effective to bring me some health, and health is very important to me. You agreed and you endorse that value. Now you're satisfying your autonomy. Second is a competence. You have to feel capable and effective in bringing about the desired outcomes and consequences in achieving goals. And third is interpersonal relatedness. You have to feel connected to other people and understood by other people. Research, and this particular person, Gordon Walker, who is retired from our faculty, he did research. He surveyed Edmonton workers, employees in the city, and he asked about how much of their autonomy, competence, and relatedness are satisfied in their leisure and work lives. And what he found was interesting. So what leisure is good at is this autonomy. This, people averaged way higher in terms of autonomy satisfaction in leisure compared to the work. 4.25 versus 3.82. That's a significant difference. But then work was better in terms of satisfying people's competence need, which kind of makes sense because for many people, there's a goal, clear goals in a work, and hopefully you have enough support and resources to actually pursue and achieve that. And there's usually, nice feedback and praise from the boss and other people when you actually accomplish stuff. And finally, in terms of relatedness, there weren't much of a difference in terms of number, But maybe the type of people you connect to would be different between leisure and paid work, because leisure, more family, friends, neighbors. Paid work would be more about colleagues. But autonomy is a key here with this finding in leisure and the psychological theory of basic need. So this is the end of this video, and I will see you in the next video.